There's a kind of wound that doesn't bleed, doesn't leave a scar, but stays with you for life. I was removed from the family group chat while my dad was in critical condition. Why? Because they thought I, the lunch lady little sister, wouldn't understand medical terms like stroke or long-term care. They called me a failure, a burden, the one who couldn't even afford to contribute $50 a month to his medical bills. But what they didn't know is that I'd been quietly running $1 million consulting firm for 15 years from my tiny one-bedroom apartment. And when they tried to shame me, smear me, and expose me, all they did was accidentally expose themselves. This is the story of a poor girl, the one who made her entire family bow their heads, using nothing but kindness, intelligence, and the power of staying silent just long enough. Chapter 1. I was just the lunch lady. So my whole family thought I was trash. I'm the middle child in a family of 4 siblings. My oldest brother is a cardiologist, constantly proud of the fact that he went to Harvard, and he never lets me forget it. My 2 sisters are social workers, the kind of people who are great at saving strangers, but never show an ounce of empathy for anyone in the family. And me, I serve lunch at an elementary school, $11.75 an hour. Plastic gloves, steel trays, and the never-ending smell of fried chicken grease. I don't have a fancy degree. No 3-car garage or heated seats. Just a tiny apartment near the train tracks and a monthly bus pass. And to my family, that equates to one thing: failure. Every holiday, Carol would smirk when she saw me helping Mom in the kitchen. Linda, you can't just hide in the kitchen forever. And Robert would chime in, all wise and condescending. At the very least, you should get a college degree. While reclipping his Harvard tie bar in the mirror, like it was some sacred ritual. I'm used to it. I've always been not smart enough, not accomplished enough, not classy enough. I'm used to the side eyes when they order $120 wine for Mom's birthday, and I stick with water because apparently I still seem like I'm behind on rent. I'm used to them calling me a bit slow, a little silly but sweet. But here's what they don't know, and what I've never needed them to know: I'm a CEO. I run a restaurant consulting firm from my one-bedroom apartment. No signage, no sleek office. Just me, a laptop, and a long client list willing to pay between $5,000 and $25,000 per project. Hotels, steakhouse chains, failing restaurants, I bring them back to life. I've been doing this quietly for nearly 15 years. By day, I serve kids chicken nuggets and chocolate milk. By night, I dive into spreadsheets, operations plans, cost optimization, menu restructuring, and service workflows. I've never told anyone, not because I'm ashamed, but because I like being underestimated. There's something incredibly freeing about being seen as harmless, and sometimes their contempt is the best armor I could ever wear. Chapter 2. My dad nearly died, and no one in my family bothered to tell me I was standing in the school kitchen scooping the 200th tray of chicken nuggets that day when my mom called. Normally, Mom only calls on Wednesday evenings. 5-minute calls, 3 predictable questions. Then she hangs up like she's clocking in for attendance. But that day was a Friday, and she started the call with a strangely casual sentence. Your siblings won't be coming to dinner this week. They're busy, taking care of your father. I froze. The tongs slipped out of my hand and clattered onto the tray, as if I'd misheard her. Taking care of Dad? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Yeah. He had a stroke last week. I thought you knew. I did not know. I didn't know because no one told me. No calls, no texts, no heads up. No one even gave me the chance to know. And right then I got it. I understood the rules of the game. Once again, I was cut out, so I asked my mom, why didn't anyone tell me? She paused for a second, then sighed. Maybe they thought you wouldn't understand the medical terms. Right, of course. Because I'm just the lunch lady, I probably can't wrap my head around the word stroke. Maybe I thought endovascular intervention was a new dessert. I hung up, and I immediately called Robert. There has to be always some kind of misunderstanding, right? Why wasn't I added to the group discussing Dad? He sighed, the kind of condescending doctor sigh you hear when a patient refuses their meds. Linda, be realistic. A good nursing home costs $8,000 a month. With your job, look, if you've got time, you can visit once a month. I answered clearly and directly, I'll take care of Dad myself. He laughed. That smug, mocking laugh I thought only existed in movies. Take care of him. What, you're going to shove him into that little matchbox you live in? Linda, this isn't about scooping mashed potatoes. Then Carol jumped in on the call, her voice cold as stone. Robert's right. This is grown-up stuff. Do you even know what Medicare is? I didn't answer. But in that moment, a plan started forming in my mind. Not to prove anything, but to make them regret it deep in their bones forever thinking I was the disposable one. What is it? I didn't argue. I bought a house in cash. The next day, while my siblings bickered in the group chat about a nursing home 90 minutes out of town, I was out touring houses. Not for me, for Dad. I looked for exactly what he'd like. A single-story home-wide hallways, a bedroom right next to the bathroom, a front door without steps, easy wheelchair access. The realtor glanced at me, old t-shirt slip-on shoes, with a look that said, "You probably can't afford this," until I said I'm paying in cash. $20,000 over asking. And I want to move in within 3 weeks. He nearly dropped his iPad. While my siblings were still crunching Medicare options and negotiating who could contribute $73 a month, I'd already hired a team to redesign the entire bathroom, installed grab bars, sliding doors, a hospital bed, and a ceiling-mounted lift system. I interviewed over a dozen in-home care providers and finally chose a professional team specializing in post-stroke patients. I told my family nothing. No updates, no permission asked. They kept sending each other links to group discount facilities. They argued over who might be free on Saturdays to stop by and see Dad. They had no idea that everything had already been taken care of by me from A to Z. 3 weeks later, I walked into the hospital with a private medical transport van, official discharge papers, and a full professional care team. Robert was mid-argument with the social worker about some temporary bed situation when I handed the nurse the paperwork and said, "Just one thing, Dad's coming home with me." You should have seen Robert's face. Stunned, blank, then furious. Carol burst out with that sharp, scoffing laugh she's famous for. "Linda, give me a break. You can't even afford a decent couch. How do you plan on bringing a stroke patient home?" James, the youngest sibling and professional tag-along, chimed in. "2, let her try. She'll come begging for help in a week. Reality's gonna slap her hard." I didn't reply. I just wheeled my dad out, rested his hand on my shoulder, and softly said, "Let's go home." "Dad," he couldn't speak, but the look in his eyes, that look I hadn't seen once in my 33 years of life, told me everything I did the right thing. Chapter 4, my name. Showed up at a conference, and my whole family lost their minds. I never planned to keep it a secret forever. I just never planned to brag about it either. I have one rule: I don't lie to anyone. But if they choose to believe the wrong story about me, that's their problem, not mine. So when my name appeared on the speaker lineup at the state's biggest restaurant industry conference, I simply smiled. Linda Mitchell, turning failing restaurants into million-dollar brands. And unfortunately, or fortunately, Paul Carroll's husband happened to attend that same conference. He took a photo of the board and dropped it in the family group chat with 3 question marks. That's when the earthquake started. The next morning, my phone exploded. Calls, texts, voicemails. The first message said, "You sick liar." The second, "We're going to expose you. You fraud." I put the phone down and turned to finish making Dad's breakfast. Soft scrambled eggs with a little cream, just the way he likes them. Dad tilted his head toward the phone, still buzzing violently on the counter. He raised an eyebrow. I smiled and said, "The family is feeling some things. But breakfast is more important. The phone rang again. This time it was Robert. I put him on speaker so Dad could hear too. I'm going to sue you for fraud, identity concealment, financial deception. I have friends who are lawyers, Linda. Your little charade is over. Dad gripped his fork tighter. I stayed calm. I never lied. I just didn't correct your false assumptions. Robert shouted. You pretended to be poor. You let us stress about Dad's medical bills while you were sitting on a pile of money. And then came the final blow. I'm going to tell the whole school that their sweet little lunch lady is a scam artist. Let's see if they still trust you after that. Click. 5 minutes later, my school principal called. Linda, I received a rather concerning call from a family member of yours. Something about financial misconduct, I answered softly. There's no issue. I'll still be there for lunch duty like always. Good. Because honestly, this school can't function without you. Right then, the doorbell rang. It was Mrs. Chen, my neighbor, standing on the porch with a tray of lasagna. I heard yelling. Everything okay? I made extra dinner and thought I'd bring some over. Your father is lucky to have you. Not many people would do what you're doing. She left. A new text popped up on my screen. I'm on my way. You better explain. Carol. She didn't come alone. James and Robert showed up right after her barging into my home like I was under criminal investigation. They didn't say a word at first. They just looked around, saw the hospital bed, the ceiling lift the medication station, the physical therapy equipment. Carol walked over to the desk I kept tucked in the kitchen corner. She picked up one of my business cards and read it out loud. Linda Mitchell, CEO Mitchell Restaurant Solutions. Her face went pale, white as a sheet. Chapter 5, my family doesn't know shame. So they chose to tear me down at all costs. The moment Carol read aloud the business card that said CEO, all three of my siblings practically exploded. Robert started with his usual broken record routine. This is clearly fraud. You must be profiting off struggling restaurants. Carol grabbed my laptop trying to open my emails, but I blocked her hand before she could. And James, he pulled out his phone like he was in some bad crime drama and said, I'm recording, just in case this turns into a lawsuit. Right then, the doorbell rang. It was Catherine, my dad's physical therapist, arriving right on time, wheeling in her equipment. She stepped into the house. Like it was any other session, glanced at the three uninvited guests, then smiled at my dad. I'm Mr. Mitchell, ready to work on those legs today. My siblings moved to the side, clearing the way like startled cats. None of them dared stop her. I sat down, opened my laptop, and logged into my business banking portal. The screen lit up with a 7-figure balance. James stopped recording. Just stared. Carol, do you see this? She actually has real money. And that's when it happened. Jealousy turned into a smear campaign. The very next day, I got an email from one of my biggest clients. Hey, Linda just noticed a new review. It's anonymous, but seems very targeted. I opened Google. There it was, a 1-star review that read, if she can lie to her own family, who knows what she's hiding from her clients, not trustworthy. Carol. Without a doubt, but it didn't stop there. Robert dug up a photo of me in my lunch lady uniform taken from the Garfield Elementary website and blasted it out to the entire extended family chat with the caption, Behold our self-proclaimed millionaire sister. Immediately, my school principal called. Linda, is something going on? I received an urgent call from a family member demanding you be removed from your position. I responded calmly. There's no emergency. I'll be at work as usual. She exhaled in relief. Good. We genuinely can't run without you, but Linda, your sister also called. She sounded pretty rattled, but that wasn't the end of it. That day I noticed my stack of flyers had gone missing from my car. The trash bin outside had been rummaged through, and my home security system sent me a motion alert at 2 a.m. A hooded figure face, hidden standing right outside my door. Dad saw it too. He still can't speak clearly, but he furrowed his brow, pointed at the footage, and whispered, "Not a neighbor." I nodded, then added more cameras, changed the Wi-Fi password, and booked an appointment with a security firm first thing the next morning. And my clients, they didn't believe the anonymous review. In fact, one of them posted a public response. "Linda saved my restaurant from bankruptcy in 2019. She doesn't need to prove anything, because here's something Robert, Carol, and James never understood. Real credibility doesn't need PR. It protects itself." Chapter 6. Thanksgiving, the night. I couldn't swallow the turkey, but swallowed my entire hypocritical family. Whole, my mom made it crystal clear Thanksgiving is happening at Linda's this year. Everyone's coming. No arguments. I tried to decline. Not because I didn't have enough chairs, but because I knew no dining table could ever be big enough for their egos. But Mom wouldn't budge. It's time to face reality. And she's the kind of woman you don't argue with. You just set the table, cook the meal, and brace yourself. Carol arrived 2 hours early. Not to help, but to unload her bitterness onto Mom. I was in Dad's room, wiping down the physical therapy equipment while she stood in the kitchen muttering, "Mom, I just don't get it." She hid everything. The truth. Like she's some hero or something. Mom's voice was unusually short. "Focus on the mashed potatoes." Carol, Robert came next, phone in hand like some PhD-level detective. He sat at the dining table and pulled up the old group chat, reading each message out loud like it was courtroom evidence. "Here, July 12th. Linda can't contribute more than $50 a month. August 23rd. She's a lunch lady. She can't understand how to choose a nursing home." He thought he was building a case against me, but really, he was just reading a log of their own cruelty, exclusion, and condescension. Ashley and James arrived last. Ashley pulled me into the hallway, placed her hand on her belly, and whispered, "We're expecting, and I don't want our child growing up in a toxic family." I nodded. I understand. Dinner began. Hot turkey. Steaming mashed potatoes. But everyone held their forks, like they might explode. I poured Dad a glass of water, cut his meat into small pieces, and placed it gently on the tray, attached to his wheelchair. No one else asked him what he wanted. Only me. The air was thick, like walking through wet cement. I took a breath and quietly said, "If anyone here needs financial help, I can assist." A spoon dropped with a clang. Robert's face turned red. "I don't need charity. I have a medical degree." Remember, Carol burst into tears. "Paul filed for divorce. He says I'm obsessive, negative, and toxic. And honestly, I think he's right. I've lost everything." No one said a word. Then Dad moved. His hand trembled slightly, but he pushed himself up with support. And then, for the first time since his stroke, he spoke clearer than he had in months. "Linda is a good daughter." That was it. No speech. No monologue. Just those 5 words. But the entire room went silent. Robert looked down. Carol covered her face. James exhaled like he'd been holding his breath the whole time. I smiled. Not because I had won, but because for the first time I didn't have to say a word to be seen. My dad did something no one in my family had ever done before. He truly saw me. ChatGPT Genoy, Chapter 7. After that dinner, no one could pretend anymore. Not even my mother. The week after Thanksgiving, my mom knocked on my door at 7 a.m. with 2 suitcases. No warning. No small talk. Just red, quiet eyes. And a sentence no one in my family ever imagined would come from her lips. I chose the wrong side. She left her rental apartment and moved in with me and Dad. She told me that when Dad was still healthy, she ignored the signs that I was the only one who visited him every week before the stroke. That I was the only child who ever asked, "Has Dad eaten?" instead of "Has Dad been transferred to another facility?" Yet Mom began helping me manage my client's schedule. Instead of complaining about my lowly lunch lady job, she started calling herself my unpaid CEO assistant. Her exact words. James came back too, with a different face. He showed up one late evening, awkwardly holding out the spare key I'd forgotten he had. Ashley made me come. But truth is, I wanted to. I'm sorry, no speech, no dramatics. But I believed him. James had always been a shadow trailing behind Robert and Carol, and now finally he was stepping out of it. Robert, on the other hand, started to unravel. Co-workers at his clinic began complaining about his attitude. He missed appointments and was even seen sneaking around my house, checking on Dad. A friend of mine on the medical ethics board messaged me, "Robert keeps talking about gaining legal guardianship over your father at the golf club. We warned him major ethical red flags." And Carol, her Facebook, became a digital psych ward. Every post, a mash of contradictions, accusations, and public meltdowns. Friends quietly unfriended her. Paul, her now ex-husband, texted me, "I'm sorry for the photo that set everything off. I didn't know, and honestly, I'm not worthy of saying your name in public." But what brought me to tears came from people outside my bloodline. The restaurant owners, my longtime clients, organized a private dinner to thank me. I thought it was a quick meeting. It turned out to be 20 former near-bankrupt business owners taking turns standing up to tell the story of how I saved them. Some cried, some hugged me. One said, "Linda, you didn't just fix my restaurant, you saved my marriage." I didn't know what to say, so I just held his hand. And for the first time I realized sometimes silence is the deepest form of gratitude. Shortly after, a local business paper ran a feature, "The Lunch Lady Who Built a $1 million Consulting Empire." The school found out. Parents found out. But no one looked down on me. Instead, they started calling me Miss Linda, the one who knows every kid's name and remembers which ones hate peas. Life didn't become perfect, but it became real. And to me, real has always been better than pretend perfect. Chapter 8. I didn't win a battle. I survived a whole war and built an empire from its ashes. 6 months after that Thanksgiving dinner, my life had found a new rhythm. In the mornings, I still put on my hairnet and stood behind the steel tray line at Garfield Elementary. The kids screamed my name like I was Taylor Swift of the lunchroom. "Miss Linda." "Are there nuggets today, Miss?" "Please don't put peas on my tray." Parents now knew I wasn't just the lunch lady, but the beautiful part. They didn't treat me any differently. I was still the one who knelt down to tie a kindergartner's shoelaces, the one who remembered which kid had a dairy allergy and who loved extra ketchup. And when the afternoon came, I'd change into a different outfit, open my laptop, and start replying to emails from luxury restaurant clients panicking over a 30% drop in revenue. I lived two lives, and neither was lesser than the other. My dad. He could walk now with a walker, speak more clearly, and especially loved roasting my siblings. James. Soft as cold, mashed potatoes. Robert thinks with his GPA, not his brain. Carol needs a social media detox retreat. I laughed every time he whispered things like that. At a recent speaking event, he even wrote out his own name tag and sat in the front row to cheer me on as I gave a talk about building success without abandoning your roots. Mom sat beside him, managing my calendar consultation schedule and holding the lunchbox I forgot to bring. James visited weekly, carrying his newborn daughter into my kitchen like it was the safest place in the world. "She's gonna grow up knowing that being a lunch lady or a CEO are equally worth being proud of," he said. And for the first time, I believed he wasn't just repeating someone else's words. "Robert, he's trying." I recently heard he publicly referred to me as his entrepreneur sister at a medical fundraiser. Didn't make eye contact while saying it, of course. But still, progress. Carol's in therapy. I'm not holding my breath for a tearful hug and family reunion, but at least the messages she sends me now are short and lowercase and don't end with, "You'll regret this." I count that as a win. One afternoon, while I was working at the kitchen table, my dad looked over and quietly said, "You don't have anything left to prove, but you keep showing up anyway. That's why you win." I smiled. Not because I needed to win, but because all I ever wanted was to be seen, to be respected without having to play a role other than myself. My story doesn't end in a teary group hug, and we're a family after all. It ends with something far more honest. I don't need forgiveness to have worth. I don't need recognition to be successful. I just need me and the people who stayed when all I had left was the truth. That's the end, but if you've ever been the one underestimated, talked down to, left out of the family group chat, remember silence doesn't mean defeat. Sometimes it's just the soft warning before you go into full game-breaking mode. I still serve lunch at an elementary school. Still remember which kid is allergic to peanuts and which one hates broccoli. But now, I no longer serve in silence. I'm seen. I'm acknowledged. Not because I shouted for respect, but because I lived in a way that earned it. And my family, they're not perfect. Maybe they never will be. But at the very least, we finally dared to speak the truth, to face the harm we caused each other. And sometimes, that's enough. As for me, I don't need them to call me a CEO, a millionaire, or a restaurant-saving angel. All I need is for them to stop looking at me like I'm not good enough. And that is enough. Thank you for listening to this story. If you've ever been underestimated, looked down on because of how you look, what you do, or where you came from, then remember this. Success isn't defined by a diploma. It's defined by how true you stay to your values, even when no one else sees them.